Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in. Conversations with the Brown Butterflies. My name is Nil. My vision and mission is to empower and celebrate each one of our unique journeys. My hope is always that by you hearing my inspiring stories that I bring to you of transformation, personal growth from Brown individuals around the world, it helps you on your journey of self-discovery and success. Today, I am super excited to have Coach Joe join us from Athens, Georgia. Thank you, Coach Joe, for taking the time out of your busy schedule to share your story with us. How are you doing?
I'm doing quite well. Thank you for asking.
Great. So if we can jump right in, I would like to know if there was a pivotal moment or experience in your life that, significantly contributed to your personal growth and transformation. And
Sure. When I was in high school, we lived in outside of Chicago,
Mhm.
and due to a series of circumstances, my mother and I had to move, and so we moved to a place called Gary, Indiana.
Right.
In Gary, Indiana, was a place that I was familiar with because my grandparents were there, had been there. But it was very much an inner city place.
Mm.
And so it was much different than the community that I had lived in before. And so this was the summer after my sophomore year in high school. So I had grown up in this space out in Illinois. All my friends started school here, and then all of a sudden I'm kind of actually being ripped away from everything that I knew and loved and everything I was familiar with to move to a new community. And so
Yeah.
this place was, obviously it was very different moving from suburb to more of an inner city type area. And so it was very much a culture shock to me. However, being there opened my eyes to a world of knowledge, information, and self-discovery. Um,
Mhm.
the place that I lived in, Illinois, was very multicultural. The community I lived in was multicultural. Um, but when I moved to in the schools that I went to, actually I'm a child of the 70s, born in the 70s. And so right there at the early 70s, early 80s, there was still remnants of desegregation taking place in these communities. And so I remember very much that my friends and I, we were being bused to other communities to go to school. And so we were, in a nutshell, part of that integration project of the high school that we went to. And
Mm.
so when I moved to Gary, that was not taking place. It was, I think, 98% African American in the schools that I went to. And so that in and of itself was a culture shock. Um,
Mhm.
Surprising little black boy going to a black school being a culture shock. But it opened my eyes to just a whole nother level of understanding about who I was and who my people were as African Americans, Black folks in America. I realized a lot of misinformation that I had grown up just thinking, just unfounded information that had been shared
Mm.
back and forth or just kind of picked up unknowingly.
Yeah.
I can give you an example. For one, I was an athlete. I've always been an athlete, just from playing on the playgrounds to playing basketball in my friends' driveways to emulating, football stars and track stars. And so when I moved to Gary, one of the things that was very prevalent that I realized, I thought that Black folks weren't very adept at running long distances.
Huh.
Um, Obviously, I'd never seen Kenyans run marathons at that point, but I always thought we were just sprinters. We were fast. We could jump high. We could run fast.
Mhm.
So when I moved to Gary, I found out that the kid in the neighboring high school was a state champion in cross country. And so that right there blew my mind. Other things that I realized, my school was all Black. And so that meant that the president of the computer club was African American, the valedictorian, the salutatorian, African American, the nerds were all African American. And so that just kind of just expanded my understanding of being a brown person in general. And so I think that I've carried that with me ever since.
Yeah. So it's like what you grew up being told or hearing around you completely was the opposite almost, right? When
Yeah.
you moved and then you realized that the possibilities are endless, is what I'm hearing you say.
Absolutely,
Right.
that we
Yeah,
weren't just relegated to certain things, or this is not something that Black and brown people do. It's like, well, we do everything. There's
absolutely.
no industry, no facet of life that Black and brown people do not exist or participate in.
Yeah. So, so if you go back to when you were growing up, um, was there some really challenges that stood out for you being, a minority there as compared to when you moved with your mom?
Well, yeah, I think, one of the things that is very common, grew up in a single parent household. My siblings are all older than I am. And so by the time I got to middle school and high school, my next oldest sibling was out the house, and my two oldest had been out the house. And so I pretty much grew up like an only child.
Mhm.
And so that in and of itself had its challenges. Again, being a child of the 70s and the 80s, we were latchkey kids. We learned how to cook and clean and take care of ourselves, to be aware of our surroundings. Literally, my friends and I walking down the street, going to the neighborhood school, and we're in elementary school, first, second, third grade, and we're walking together as a group. And so I think that in and of itself presented its own challenges that a lot of young people don't have today.
Right,
How do we fend for ourselves? How do we learn things? And with my mother constantly working, how do I take care of myself and pick up or absorb the things that will be beneficial for me to grow and develop and to be healthy,
right.
not just physically, but just a healthy individual. And so I think in an overall sense, that was probably the biggest challenge that looking back, several of my friends did not pick up some of these lessons.
Hmm.
They're either not here with us today, or they made some very bad choices in life that very easily could have been me right there
Right.
along the way, especially since I was left to my own devices much of the time. And so there's a lot of grace involved there, but also my temperament and also the things that my mom and my family did instill.
Yeah. Yeah. So it sounds like you listen to that inner voice, that no, I shouldn't be doing that. I should be doing this, should keep myself safe, and you became street smart, I guess in a way to protect yourself,
Sure.
right? From, possibly going down a wrong path. I can totally relate. And I'm sure a lot of listeners, feel the same way. So who or what would you say was the most influential in shaping the person that you are today? I mean, it could have been a sports fan because you were into that, or, family or friend or neighbor. And I'd love to hear about that.
Sure. I will say, my mother, absolutely. But other than her, it was actually my track coach, my last year of high school. This gentleman that I met as my coach. I'll never forget the first time I met the guy, Coach Campbell, Roosevelt High School, Gary, Indiana.
Wow.
Um, he asked me some questions. I thought I was doing it big when I was at my other school. I was a sprinter, I was popular. Oh, Joe's fast, yada, yada, yada. I get to this school here and I go up to him. It's like, hey, I want to run track. I want to be on the track team. And he looks at me and he asks me, well, what kind of times are you running? And I tell him, I'm sticking out my chest. I tell him,
Mhm.
I run this, I run that. And he looked at me, he was like, boy, that's what we run in practice. And, of course, I thought he was just giving me a hard time till practice began. And I found out he was not lying.
Mm.
And so it made me step up. And he was the kind of guy that would really inspire you, and he would push you, and he would not let up. He wasn't hard, he wasn't brutal, but
Right.
he was definitely tough in a way and understanding because of the environment. because of his experience and because of his longevity and his wisdom. And one other instance that I'll never forget, we were in a meeting with the team.
Mhm.
And this is like early on in the season. And he's giving this speech or his lecture and just talking to us as a team. And I'll never forget, he looked at me. Uh,
Mm.
and maybe it was, I don't know if it was intentional or I just felt like he was just talking directly to me. But he said, when you get to the state meet, this is what's going to happen. Now, mind you, even though I thought I was fast in my other school, I had never qualified to run in a state meet. And so here's this man telling me, when you get there, these are the things that you're going to encounter. And it's like, we haven't even run our first meet yet.
Wow.
And, lo and behold, I'm a state champion. I received a scholarship to run track in Division I university. And, so those things just always stuck to me because he had faith and he had vision and he had foresight. But he was
Absolutely.
also the type of person that stuck to his guns and he knew what he was talking about. And he was tough, but tough with a purpose. And he
Yeah.
had wisdom for
Yeah.
dealing with these young people.
Yeah. That's a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing that. It's like, as a coach, you can see the possibility that the person that you're coaching may not see in themselves, and that is
Absolutely.
exactly a purpose, and that's amazing. So I know that you agree that it is very important to have a coach, in the youngsters or anybody's life, right? When you're stuck or when you're in a place where you need that supervision. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think the coach's role, and just being a coach in general, our job is to open eyes. Our job is to help with the process of discovery.
That's right.
Even just looking back at my track coach, he wasn't telling me something that was false. He wasn't pouring ideas or putting ideas in my head. He was
Right.
helping me to discover me and the
Exactly.
potential that I had. And
Right.
so he saw something, and his job as a coach was to facilitate me unlocking that potential, kind of like your brown butterflies. It's like we
Ab-
have to evolve and we have to change. And the butterfly is always there. It just starts out as a caterpillar, but it has to go through that metamorphosis and it has to
Absolutely.
change for its wings to spread and to be able to fly. And so, as a coach, even now, in my coaching practice, I
Hmm.
tell my clients that my job is I'm a partner with you. I don't give you information. I give you information, but that's only as needed. But my job is to partner with you. And I like to give them an analogy that you're showing me around your neighborhood. And
Hmm.
my position is to ask questions about your neighborhood and have you look at your own neighborhood in a different way because you have to explain to me the things that you see on a regular basis
Right.
that you may not even recognize that you see or that you know.
Right. Because you know your neighborhood best, not me,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
So, absolutely. So, looking back, what personal habits or practices would you say, moving forward after your coach coached you, really helped you and supported you to continue to grow and transform?
Um, I'm a lifelong learner. I'm big on education. I do have 2 degrees. One of my degrees is in educational administration, and I've worked in the public school system as well as the university system.
Hmm.
So I'm big on education. I'm always learning. As a coach, there's a never-ending supply of things to learn, whether it's methodologies or just
Right.
more information on how the human psyche works and how we motivate people, and learning about behavior change. And I'm really big on that. I love to read, and so I think because of what my coach and other people who were around me did and how they shared and how they taught me,
Right.
I've always had a desire to learn more and to
Right.
be more so that I could be more to the people that I'm interacting with.
Exactly. Exactly. I love that you internalized and your entire career has been giving back, and kind of repeating um, history, so to speak, giving others that encouragement, no matter what age they are, so they can, evolve into their beautiful butterfly,
Exactly.
right? So what's like one piece of advice that you would give to, somebody in middle school and high school who are just frustrated and they'd like to give up?
Sure. That's interesting. I used to work in a middle school. Um,
Okay.
so one of the things that I love to share with the middle schoolers that I worked with, um, you know, school, our formal educational system, God bless it, it really focuses a lot on our deficiencies in those places where we need to kind of bolster our understanding. And so if I'm weak in math, then I need to take more math classes. However, as we grow older, and even once I got into college, and particularly as I pursued my master's degree, all of that fell by the wayside. I did not try to add on more coursework in areas that I found difficult or
Right.
that I was not proficient in. I added more coursework onto the things that I excelled in. And so my advice and my encouragement to not just young people, but to anybody, find the things that you do well. What are those things that you have a passion for? What are
Mhm.
those things that you love to do that you would do all day, every day? What do you find yourself always gravitating to? And
Mhm.
hone in on those things, because those are the things that you can build not just a career, but a life out of. And it's far too often we talk to young people about getting a job, and even going off to college. And like I said, I went to a very large Division I university with
Mhm.
38, 40,000 students there. That's not an environment that everyone can thrive in.
Right.
Um, some people need to be in smaller places, and it's not even always about going off to college. It's about finding your passion, finding your love, finding the things that you love to do and that you're able to do well, and
Right.
seek out further education and knowledge in that area. And
Yeah.
so I'm all for education. It's just, what does that education look like?
Right.
I think we need to have and encourage more trades. There are a lot of people that are young people that are good with their hands, and they would excel with things that they do, whether it's cooking, whether it's crafting something,
Right.
whether it's
Right.
working on cars or
Yeah,
computers, or what have you,
exactly.
something that they can do, and it will save them and the economy a world of trouble. They
Yeah.
won't go into debt trying to take out these $100,000 loans just to get a 4-year degree, and then still need to go back and learn something that they love to do. And they're
Exactly.
already put on that path. So,
Right, right. I'm sure being a coach, you agree, everybody has different learning styles, right? So if we have the same curriculum for everybody, it doesn't work, right?
yeah,
I mean, you and I have spoken, and I know when you coach, it's very important to find out how somebody receives information, right? What
sure.
makes them, um, you know, grasp something, and that could be totally different than someone else. So that's what's very important. Before I forget, please look below is all the links on Instagram and LinkedIn, where you can absolutely reach Coach Joe, and he would be more than happy to help you along on your journey. So I want to end this beautiful conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your story and being a part of, the journey that other people can resonate with. I just want to end saying each of us carries the potential for transformation within our hearts. I invite you to embrace your own journey, no matter where you are in your metamorphosis, with courage and self-compassion. I'm Nil, and I thank you for being part of our community. Until next time, bye-bye.
Bye.